Hello, friends, and welcome to our fourth in this series of four pre-Gemini full moon webinars. This is maybe the more customary type of webinar that I have been offering. The first three dealt with the keynotes of Gemini, which the Christ emphasizes during the 3 days before the actual Gemini full moon. The keynote of love, the keynote of resurrection, and the keynote of contact. All of these extremely deep, and we have been working on them during the past 3 days. A love which is true, soul love, divorced from all sentiment and love of form per se, a resurrection of the soul and of the immersed spirit, leading finally to that great seventh initiation, which I think has a lot to do with Gemini and is a love-wisdom initiation involving the solar logos and the logoic plane, and finally a deep and true contact with our fellow human beings as a reflection of a still deeper contact with the Christ and his hierarchy. Tonight I'll just say a little bit more about Gemini per se, and then we'll be emphasizing the last sermon of the Buddha. We have been looking at a couple of, well, three really, little excerpts from that last sermon. The method of overcoming bodily cravings, overcoming sensations, and finally overcoming the thoughts and feelings which lead to grief. And we had to be strenuous and mindful, thoughtful, mindful, strenuous in order to overcome these liabilities. This is the great sign of duality as we see here in the Jafra rendering. It's there's so many dualities here. The sun and the moon, of course, and the two channels of the three channeled Kundalini, the Ida and the Pingala, the Ida on the moon side, the Pingala on the sun side. The lion and the unicorn, although in a certain way the lion should be over here on the moon side, strangely, because it represents, in this case, the personality, and the unicorn represents the triumphant solar soul. The lion is always put to death by the unicorn, and the two eyes of the dualistic lion are blinded by the one eye of the unicorn. The man and the woman, of course, representing, I suppose, in this case, Pollux and Castor. But eventually we have the union of the two dragons leading us to the divine hermaphrodite. Hermes, in a way, the man is Hermes, and Mercury and the sun are one, and Aphrodite is the woman, and we have Hermes, Aphrodite, the divine hermaphrodite, which is really, after all, the solar angel, as we can see here, the dual solar angel, the Mercurian Venusian soul. So in the fusion of these opposites, where one starts off in the tarot journey as the fool and ends up with an attitude of temperance, we have the spiritual maturity of the individual. The banner shows the three rulers: Mercury in yellow, Venus in indigo, and the Earth may be blue-green. Well, we can look at it in various ways, but these are respectively the esoteric, and hierarchical rulers. The mantra for Gemini, really, the word should be recognized. I once used this in a song, you know, and it flowed a little better with the word see, but it's recognized. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. What is this other self? It is our habitual self. It's the self with which we so often identify when we think of what we are, but it is an illusion. We are identifying merely with the instrument, and who is the observer after all? The observer is that higher point of view which is not only the soul consciousness, but eventually becomes the monad with its awareness as we unite spirit and matter in a fluid synthesis through this sign, Gemini. Francis Donald has contributed some very interesting, there it is. This shows the Castor and Pollux connection. The Castor connection is the personality as it is seen by the higher self, represented by the supergiant star Pollux. And as I've been telling us, really, Castor is a series of 6 stars, 3 pairs of stars. Well, eventually we learn how to achieve this higher perspective. We learn how to abstract from our usual stage of lesser identification, and we learn how to view as if from a great distance our lower instrumentation and find ourselves identified with that which is and that which sees. This is one of the yogic states. It's called pratyahara. It means abstraction, and then it can lead into the concentration and deep meditation, dharana, and finally into contemplation, samadhi, where we realize our oneness with all things. And in fact, in Gemini, even though it's a dualistic sign, that can be realized, oneness with all things, and the attitude of I serve my, not only I serve my brother, but I serve the one. I serve the one self. The other illustration here by Francis is quite amazing. It shows the relationship between the 2 brothers, and here the soul self is the initiator, and through this almost, I would say, a kind of almost a Syrian star. You know, the star Sirius can be connected with the Ajna center, and it appropriately has the strong 5th ray. The pillars of wisdom are raised here in this particular mudra. The soul is offering a pranic mudra, Francis tells us, and the united thumb and fingers represent the circulation of the energies. The soul is stimulating the triangle within the head of the individual, and we have here these 3 points of light which have to be connected in a blazing triangle. The highest and most central is the pituitary body, related to the head center. Then comes the pineal gland, the pineal gland related to the head center, then the pituitary body related to the ajna center. And finally, when there is a link between these two, a kind of divine marriage, then as well the alta major center is enlisted, and the highest energy bridges the gap and pours down the spine, linking finally to the base of the spine center. And then indeed, through Gemini, the highest and the lowest can meet. It seems strange that this sign does not have an association with the 7th ray, but in a very deep sort of way it really does, because the pillars of wisdom are the dualities which connect heaven and earth, and they stand foursquare. They stand with great stability and indicate, I think, and my friend Nicholas Nillen thinks, a former relationship of the 7th ray to Gemini, supporting the edifice of the temple and linking the highest and the lowest. So it's all about the circulation of the energies in the etheric body, and eventually it's about the circulation of the cosmic ethers, the Buddhic, Atmic, Monadic, and Logoic planes, through the lesser ethers so that heaven can truly be joined to earth. The soul is a great initiator. The soul is well, when we say the solar angel, that's what we mean, is an initiator of all degrees, an initiate of all degrees as far as the human degrees are concerned, and has already traveled, shall we say, to the star Sirius for education along the solar angelic line and has returned. There's such a connection between Sirius, our solar logos, the planet Venus, the solar angels, and the redemption of man and the redemption of the earth. This great solar energy reaches us in that way. And eventually we do become the true eye within the triangle. That's what we always are anyway. We are this, excuse me, deep essence of being. That is what we are. And the three aspects of divinity are simply the methods through which we serve. We cannot say that we are more linked to one than another. We must use all three. And the true monad is more than will, wisdom, and activity. The monad is the very essence in the midst of that triangle, really forming a tetrahedron, and eventually we learn how to become the essence. One day we do indeed recognize that all of our other selves are simply other compared with the deep essence that we are and which the entire universe is. Well, you can read Francis's analysis of all of this. I probably sent it to you a number of times, or it can be acquired from the Morya Federation. I'm simply enlarging on it a little bit as there's a lot that we have to do tonight, at least in our night here. All right. So I think we are ready to begin our meditative work together. We always want to move from duality, which is the natural perception of things in the limited state. We are limited exemplifications of the one. We are emanations in multiplicity of the one being, and we perceive in the nature or along the line of duality. It seems to be factual to us. But as a fluid synthesis offered through Gemini begins to take hold of our realization, the duality melts into a seamless unity, and we begin to understand that which at length the Master will fully understand. We begin to enter the state of isolated unity. We have isolated the all-embracing unity, and though for practical purposes dualities of self and other can be registered in order to deal with the practical world, we know that beneath it all and as it all there is a fluid synthesis, which is the reality with which we must learn to identify. This is so very important for the student of occultism, to know the one and therefore serve the one. And this can be achieved in Gemini, which is that sign which unites the opposites. As we know, the zodiacal opposites, Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, Cancer, Capricorn, and so forth, are united by the Lord of the constellation Gemini. So it's a sign of not only duality, as its glyph seems to show, but of threefoldness and the uniting of all dualities through a central point. In a way, we have that when we, as a soul, can understand the relationship between spirit and matter, our highest and lowest poles. Well, you know, we could we could go on and on about this wonderful sign. I really recommend a rereading of the labors of Hercules, at least in the beginning of that book, for the first 7 of the Herculean stories, the Tibetan was the author. And his presentation of the Gemini story is marvelous. It's very complex. It has 5 main parts to it. But finally, by a careful reading of it, we understand how the soul can liberate itself from illusion and enter into the deepest form of service. First, the service which liberates the solar angels so that they may return to the heart of the sun and perhaps the central spiritual sun in some cases, and then liberates the planetary logos himself via cooperation with the hierarchy. So Atlas is aided. Atlas, bearing the burden of the world, is aided by the individual who is entering the ranks of the hierarchy. And you know, all of our work here with the Tibetan, he's the great messenger. He has so much Gemini connected with him somehow. So does Master K.H. Alice Bailey was a Gemini, and then so were her successors. They all had very strong Gemini, quite amazingly, those who worked with the Tibetan in the closest way. Foster Bailey, Mary Bailey, and others. It is the great sign of esoteric education. Master K.H., who is in charge of this larger type of education, and his closest disciple, the Tibetan, they do inform us to help us bring together in an attitude of pure reason and understanding of this marvelous cosmos in which we exist, so we can fuse all dualities into one, the realization of the one. All right, friends. So this will be the last of these full moon webinars. A little later, just in about 7 hours, here in Finland, Tuija will be offering a broadcast with music and image, a service meditation for the exact time of the full moon. It does begin at 2:55 a.m. GMT, which is 5:55 here in Finland, a.m. And the actual moment of the full moon, and do try to remember this, is 4:11 and 27 seconds a.m. Universal Time, or GMT. The opportunity is there for us. The door opens for us in a way that it does at no other time. So even though it may be the wee hours or late or whenever it may be, exact time participation in the full moon at the expense of a little physical sacrifice perhaps is indispensable. At least that's the way the Tibetan seems to judge it to be. All right. Well, we've been using this meditation, and I think we can maybe streamline it a little bit here, because there's so much to think about in the last sermon of the Buddha coming up later in the meditation. So we will now begin our meditative work. There are wonderful energies available now, the energies of Mercury, of Venus, and the essential divinity of Earth are deeply stimulated at this time. So these are available to us now, and especially in group form. We are meditating together, maybe some 70 of us, 65 of us or so, but all over the world, many groups are meditating in this lead-up to the actual Gemini full moon, and we know a gigantic group meditation will be occurring, and under Gemini we should really be able to feel these soul connections. So we remind ourselves that we are the soul in incarnation. We are consciousness faced with certain fields of experience which we register, but which are, in a sense, objective to us. So though we register the body and the energy states of the etheric body, and though we register the attractions and repulsions of the feelings and emotions of the astral body, and though we register the many thoughts of the concrete mind, we are actually none of these specifically. Of course, all is one, we know that, but for purposes of division and understanding the deeper essence, we are not these lower personal states. We register. We are the unit of consciousness. We are being first and foremost, because without being there can be no consciousness. But consciousness is in a way the units of being touching each other. The registration of multiplicity. And there are other worlds in which this being consciousness lives. The next world after abstraction is the world of light, of which all things are composed. The universe is condensed light. We are entering this world of light, this world of magnetic, loving relationship between all units of being consciousness. This world of the will, which is intent on bringing reality into illusion and transforming it, so that all becomes knowingly real. This is the world of the soul. This is what we are in our intermediate state. And all of us can register each other in this realm of soul, where we would appear quite different than in the usual personality mode, but scattered all over the world as personalities and, in a way, victims of time and space. We forget those illusions and realize that we are in each other's presence. Think of those you may know in this meditating group and realize that in a sense you know all in the realm of soul. We are together. And our sense of relating to each other in a growing perception of oneness includes all the members of the new group of world servers, all the men and women of goodwill, the brighter points of light, and finally everybody, really, whether in incarnation or out of incarnation, all human beings get the feeling of uniting all the billions of human beings, realizing that they are in a way one unit, one being, one identity, one consciousness with multiple apertures of consciousness. all of us together, unknown to each other in the personal sense, but in a deep communion, in a oneness which unites all dualities, all multiplicities, very subtle, but if some glimmer of that can reach our consciousness, then we're really on the way. And reality is replacing illusion. So we are merged with each other and with all. And we know the fallacy of my soul and thy soul. Practical in one sense, if one is evaluating the development of the egoic lotus, but not real. There is no my soul or thy soul, as the Tibetan tells us in the fifth rule of the advanced rules. There's only the one consciousness, the one soul, and then the ancient second ray mantram applies. Naught is but me. Dwell on that for a little while. Realized in the heart, naught is but me. And all distinction fades away in the reality of the one essence. Naught is but me. So we have our identification as the one soul. We'll work in the mind reinforced by the will of the group soul, endowed with the qualities of the seven rays: initiative, unity, evolution, harmony, the will to act, the will to cause, the will to express. All of these we have as we realize that the group soul is infusing the group mind, the group personality. We are together at that point of tension, drawing up all the resources of the group personality into this soul reinforced point of tension on the fourth sub-level of the mental plane. So that as we think our thoughts, they are imbued with soul quality, with spiritual telepathy, with the response to group vibration, with spiritual discernment. We are thinking together in soul, as the one. And we use our creative imagination as a group. There are two qualities each of us has: a soul ray, a personality ray. They have to fuse, they have to blend. Bringing together the twins in Gemini is to blend the soul and personality ray They have their colors. We can use these colors. Red for the first ray, indigo for the second, green for the third, yellow for the fourth, orange for the fifth, several colors there really, rose color for the sixth ray, and violet for the seventh. There are other colors, but we can use these. And imagine that from our own part of the group mental unit, our own mental unit, we extend imaginatively two colors, two qualities toward the planetary mind, the planetary love, the planetary will. We use two colors, one for the personality ray, one for the soul ray, or use the color indigo if you're not sure. We rest with those colors as they rise, seemingly through the spiritual triad, our participation, that is, in the perception of the planetary logos on the triadal levels. Feel your two colors as they reach into that point of blue-white radiance which we use to symbolize the monad, that point of pure being within the monadic vehicle, and get the energy sense of it. And all of us, we have a multicolored cone-like rainbow bridge, a funnel, a vortex. All of our colors are rising towards the blue-white diamond, or going interiorly towards the center, as portrayed in this image by Francis. One can go to the center as well from the periphery. But we rise together or move interiorly together toward the very essence, and we feel all the qualities as we approach pure being, and we are going to send a rapier-like beam of brilliant synthetic white light toward the very essence of our being. We're going to use the second ray word of power. I see the greatest light. These are magical methods given by the Tibetan to unite the highest and the lowest. And as we inwardly intone with our mind, I see the greatest light, we will outwardly sound the Om on the note G, one of the notes we can use for the second ray. Om, I see the greatest light, projection into being. So our group Antikarana has become an instrument through which the father aspect can communicate with the son aspect, and we can be inspired from above even as we reach toward those heights, inspired from within, even as we on the periphery reach towards that inwardness. And so we should be then sentiently in touch with these higher energies now. Not only the energies of our higher mental plane, but energies that are more planetary in nature and have a broader impersonal scope. Just like the energies with which the Great White Lodge, the Elder Brothers, the Society of Organized and Illumined Minds, Christ and His Church, just like those energies that they are immersed in because of the point of tension they have achieved through mastership and beyond. And so with some connection to their realm, we can express our solidarity with the Elder Brothers through salutations. It is not worship, it is willful cooperation with their enterprises and acknowledgement of what they are and the level upon which they work and from which we receive. So we will also include the Buddha at this festival, just as we did for the Wesak, because he does cooperate with the Christ during this festival of the Christ, which represents both the East and the West in unity. So as a group, deeply united as a group, deeply present to each other in soul, including all who may be meditating in soul, we offer our salutations. Salutations to the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light, the Lord of Wisdom. Salutations to the Lord Maitreya, the Christ, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we most closely work. The masters M, KH, and DK. Salutations to the Master Morya, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master Kutumi, the coming Christ of the age of Capricorn, and the Chohan who most directs the preparation for the reappearance of his brother, the Lord Maitreya, the present Christ. Salutations to the Master Jwal-Kul, who has given us the Blue Books, the great messenger of hierarchy, who trains aspirants for initiation. Salutations to your own Master, as you know him to be or conceive him to be. Salutations to the Great White Brotherhood, the spiritual hierarchy of our planet, to the hierarchy in its entirety. Maintaining this point of tension, and in fact increasing it, we imaginatively raise our thought to Shambhala, the supreme point of tension in relation to our planet and planetary scheme, the center where the will of God is known, and with deepest reverence and in all humility, we attempt, identified as the group soul, as the group being, to attune to the presence of Sanat Kumara, the great teacher, the great Savior, the Lord of Venusian love, the youth of endless summers, the Lord of the world, And our long, inwardly silent Om will be sounded as we attempt to be impressed by as much of the divine purpose through the divine plan as we can receive. Inwardly, silently, the long Om. The energies come together in Shambhala under the law of assembly, especially at these full moon opportunities. And we will seek now the assistance of the energy of Master DK, who is the great expert in these matters of planetary systemic energies, the energies of the great of hierarchies, such cosmic energies as we may contact. Indeed, these zodiacal lords are representatives of cosmic energy. We are as if a point, we, the meditating group, a point. No personal distinction remains in this point. We are a point of being, expressing as light and as love and as will. And that point hovers above the golden pathway which leads to the center of the indigo sun, where we will imaginatively encounter the presence of Master DK and become outposts of his consciousness in the attempt to understand more deeply the energies with which we can work at this time. And so as the golden pathway shortens and shortens and shortens, we move with it and are as if absorbed into the indigo sun. There we find this supportive consciousness which will help us realize the reality of these energies, these planetary, systemic, and cosmic energies. For Mercury is very present now. The Buddhic yellow of Mercury and the mental yellow as well. The glyph of Mercury before us, very present, helping us unite our own pairs of opposites, soul and personality. Into a fluid synthesis so that we truly become increasingly the soul-infused personality. We have to do that. Though we are one, we are also many, and have to work in this world of manyness even while being one. Let Mercury assist us. Linking all diversity into a realized fluid synthesis. And before us, Venus, seen in its indigo mode, the higher color of the fifth ray, and the color of the great synthetic ray too. Before us, the gift and the glyph of Venus, drawing heart and mind together, so we can think in the heart and feel with the mind, love with the mind. Love and wisdom fusing the opposites, fusing all things. In beauty. The angel and the man as one. And finally our earth, our blue-green earth, our second ray, third ray earth. We sometimes think of it as just the green, the third ray, but it's not, it's more. The great love, wisdom, soul of earth, instructed by the greater second ray of Venus. The earth, the field of service, the hierarchical ruler, the base of the spine, center of our solar logos. Not yet functioning thus, but one day to function thus. And upon this field of service, we will serve in such a way that everything we do will render our planet closer to sacredness, bringing forward the number 5, at which point sacredness can occur. Mercury, Venus, and the Earth, energies present, logoi present, breathing them in, not abstractions, realities here and now. And onward we move within that consciousness supported by the deep understanding of Master DK toward our solar logos, the God of the consuming fire of love, the blue logos, the indigo logos, the heart center of a greater cosmic logos. We are all living in a great heart. Whatever our ray may be, it's all one heart. And God is love. And in this solar system, we are love. And at this Geminian, Syrian, solar logoic Venusian time, we can realize this. At the heart of every unit of life in the solar system is Buddhi. Love, wisdom. we are love, the fire of love, the consuming fire of love. And all secondary things will be burnt away. The sun is always shining. The Logos is always present, always attentive. And the more we love, the more we are of our great indigo solar Logos. And on into the night sky where the twins blaze, Pollux and Castor, between them the light of interplay. Says the Tibetan, this is a line of light beams revealing that which opposes, or the basic duality of manifestation, the relationship of spirit and of form. It is the conscious light of that relationship. And in this light, spirit will no longer be different from form, from matter. As HBB has told us, they are the same. And they are also one with soul. And life, or essence, or being pervades them all and is them all. All opposing factors are resolved in this light of interplay, leading to the realization of fluid synthesis. So open yourselves then to the feel of the energy quality of Gemini, attempting to realize its profound relationship to the second ray of love wisdom, working via the rulers, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and the different rays contained in all of this. A love wisdom time, the time when for any embodied Christ the greatest realization is reached. And the phase, high phase of the seventh initiation can be taken. It happened, we are told, in 1943. It must have been very significant for the Lord Maitreya. And in this love, wisdom, we live. And through it we can reconstruct the world. The forces of reconstruction so linked to Gemini, rebuilding right on this earth, the hierarchical ruler, the divine plan, embodying the divine purpose. Supported by the forces of restoration from Aries and the forces of enlightenment from Taurus, we rebuild the shrine of man's living. We rebuild. And when the wars are over, and there are so many wars going on, the era of peace will supervene. The great building ray, the second ray, accompanied by the seventh, will rebuild the world under the forces of restoration, and towards this we can even now direct our intention. And as if looking at the beautiful oblong square, the rectangle which the Geminian constellation is from our perspective, we ponder deeply together the mantram of Gemini, as I'm sure we have been doing for days now, intensifying it for a time just 6 hours from now or so. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Find the self which recognizes the other self, and be that self, which is, after all, but the one being, the one self. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Maybe we can all meet each other as one being in the self that recognizes the other self and selves. I must decrease that he may increase. Thus says John the Baptist, thus says the personality to the spirit soul. But let us be together in the self that does not wane, but only seems to wax. How abstracted we are from all illusion when we are in and as the real self, the one. Thus do we grow and glow together in the state of spirit soul. We are one, though our distant instruments are many. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Just a few hours remain now. Our attention is upon the two great lords, the Christ and the Buddha, and on the great monadic state of brotherhood which they represent, being the West and the East, and the spiritual union of these two hemispheres of our earth. The Lord of love and the Lord of wisdom and of light, the Christ and the Buddha. The brothers in the light, the constellation Gemini, which they reflect. They are the earthly reflection of a great cosmic relationship. This is the day of the full moon. And this is the day on which the Christ is said to preach the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy, reaching the hearts and minds of all human beings. This is the link. How close is the relationship between them? Not imagined by the usual adherents of either one of the religions which the great beings have inspired. The entirety of the sermon, it will, of course, not be spoken in English. Maybe in the language the Buddha himself used, maybe in the Pali language. But whatever, the meaning comes through to us as we contemplate the English words. And it is astonishing how the major theme of the Buddha's last sermon is self-reliance, that great inner confidence in the absolute beingness which each one of us is. We don't just have it, we are it. It's not like reliance on your personality, although that is included, or reliance upon your stored soul qualities, though that is included. It's reliance upon the ever full, the ever complete, the one and only pure being, which is the identity of all cosmos. This is the kind of reliance we're talking about, as it precipitates into various forms of accessible information, strength, energy, direction. As DK has told us, we must have confidence in the inner God. We are the inner God. St. Paul, know ye not that ye are gods? We are gods within the one and only God, who is no limited being at all. And so we will now concentrate on more of this sermon. We have somewhat entered it the last 3 days. We have spoken of overcoming through strenuous attitude, diligence, discipline, mindfulness, self-reliance, overcoming all of the usual snares. And now we go still more deeply into the Buddha's point, imagining, as it were, that the Christ himself at a certain hour, we know not the hour, but will be preaching the entirety of this sermon. And so we will read slowly, meditatively, as if we were disciples of the Buddha, gathered around him, as at the age of 80 in earth years, he prepared to leave incarnation willingly, the result of poisoning, the eating of tainted meat in a sacrificial act, advising his disciples that they could not eat it. He did not need to die, of course, but as Master Morya told us, by passing on in the normal way, he saved us all from some form of idolatry, some form of worship which would have been against the very self-reliance that he emphasized. So, we read together. Those who, either now or after I am dead, shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as their lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone, shall not look for assistance to anyone besides themselves. It is they, Ananda, among my bhikshus, who shall reach the very topmost height. But they must be anxious to learn. My age is now full ripe. My life draws to its close. I leave you. I depart, relying on myself alone. Be earnest then, O brethren, holy, full of thought. Be steadfast in resolve. Keep watch o'er your own hearts. Who wearies not, but holds fast to his truth and law, shall cross the sea of life, shall make an end of grief. When the light of gnosis has dispelled the darkness of ignorance, when all existences have been seen as without substance, peace ensues. When life draws to an end, which seems to cure a long sickness at last. Everything, whether stationary or movable, is bound to perish in the end. Be ye therefore mindful and vigilant. The time for my entry into nirvana has now arrived. These are my last words. And so, in deep silence, we enter into the spirit of the Buddha's last sermon. We take it deeply, deeply into our hearts and our minds, into our will. And we find ourselves immensely strengthened by his words, counseling self-reliance. The finding of that inner self, that inner being which can never fail. And living according to its counsel. This would be an immense step for all of us, could we do as he has given us to do. And so, with profound gratitude to the Buddha for all he has done to illumine humanity, we refocus our attention on the Lord Maitreya. And this time, we imagine the Lord Maitreya and the entire assembled hierarchy with great power, love, and light, sounding the great invocation together. This has been World Invocation Day, and of course we continue this into the day of the full moon, when all over the world people have sounded repeatedly the great invocation, this immensely powerful mantra of light and power. And we will now inwardly hear, through our imagination, the Christ and all the hierarchy of light sounding the great invocation together. Let us begin as if they begin. We imagine the Christ focusing all the spiritual aspiration of humanity in his being. And as the leader of his people and the eldest in a great family of brothers, in an act of love, offering up that aspiration on our behalf to the Buddha and Shambhala. And the full response of the love of Shambhala, inspired by the Solar Logos, flows into both hierarchy and humanity. Creating a great planetary triangle through which the energies of divine solar love are circulating. pouring throughout, along all the many lines that connect human beings, the great love of Shambhala hierarchy inspired from the blue logos. From Gemini, the head of the cosmic Christ, comes the cosmic love, the source of all that is transpiring at the time of the full moon. And on this great day we have been experiencing World Invocation Day ever since 1952 observed. We offer our deepest appreciation for the Gemini energy increasingly available, as in just a few hours the moment will come. And then indeed we shall distribute over the next 3 days this high point of spiritual love at this festival of the Christ, this festival of humanity, this festival of goodwill. We shall find the way to distribute this to everyone we meet, over and above the customary. The divine solar love, inspired from Gemini, will flow. And so we will, as if in unison with the Christ, the hierarchy, and all disciples of the world, we will sound together now the entire great invocation, sensing its beauty to draw humanity towards the hierarchy of light, love, and power, and its ability to unite all human beings under the divine plan in all its beauty, power, and love. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Friends, in less than 6 hours we have the actual full moon, and our exact moment service meditation begins actually in a little more than 4 hours. I hope some of you can join us. Those of you who will be awake during the next several hours, just keep increasing your point of tension, and make sure, those of you who must sleep, that you wake up in plenty of time so your full faculties can be with you. Thank you for attending these 4 pre-full moon meditations, and now we build towards that important point at 4:11:27 a.m. Universal Time. Let's all meet in communion and bring multiplicity into oneness through our realization. Many blessings to everyone, and let's have a wonderful full moon moment together in deep communion with the hierarchy and with all our fellow human beings and the entire planet on its way to sacredness. Bye-bye for now. We'll see you later.